Welcome back. We've now defined CSR, mapped its dimensions and strategies, and asked what drives it. In this video, we get to the question every manager and every skeptic eventually asks, does it pay? This slide opens the theme of CSR benefits for companies and for society. And I want to frame the whole video honestly. There's a temptation to treat CSR as pure upside. Good for the world, good for the brand, good for everyone. But a serious business case has two sides. So we'll spend the first half of this video being genuinely tough on CSR, laying out its costs and barriers in detail, and only then turn to its benefits. That order is deliberate. If CSR survives an honest accounting of its costs and still looks worthwhile, then the case for it is real, and not just marketing. If this video is helpful to you, you might think about subscribing. New ones go up regularly, and that way you'll catch them all. Let's start with the central barrier, the cost-benefit ratio. This is the single biggest obstacle to implementing CSR, and here's why it bites. The barrier arises first when companies simply don't have the financial resources to develop CSR, or when they're forced into compromises between profits on one side and ethical actions on the other. That trade-off is real. Pretending it doesn't exist helps no one. But the slide identifies a second, subtler source of the barrier, and it splits it neatly into two. There's external control. The enterprise doesn't have adequate knowledge of how to integrate CSR. It doesn't know how. And there's internal control. There's a lack of strong leadership and management to actually integrate CSR principles. Even where the knowledge exists, the will and the steering from the top may not. So the cost-benefit barrier isn't only about money. It's about money, knowledge, and leadership together. Over the next four slides, we'll unpack these barriers one by one. Here are the first three barriers in detail. The first, lack of financial resources. This is the hardest-nosed objection to CSR. CSR investments, the argument goes, do not maximize the company's profits. They're only cost-related, often booked simply as expenses. And this lack of cost efficiency is itself a barrier. If CSR just costs money without a clear return, why do it? The second barrier, lack of top management commitment. Decisions about implementing CSR are strategic, so they have to be supported and driven by top management. And top management doesn't just initiate concepts, it's also key to motivating everyone else. So where that support is missing, CSR stalls. And the third, lack of knowledge about CSR practices. This one traces right back to something we saw in video 1. The definition of CSR is ambiguous. The specific categories of action aren't clearly assigned. The actions are subjective, and there's often little reference to concrete practice. If you don't quite know what CSR is, you can hardly implement it well. The barriers continue, and now they get more strategic. The fourth, lack of effective strategic planning for CSR. Without it, a firm may fail to build future competitive advantage and may run into trouble delivering on its individual CSR objectives. Good intentions without a plan tend to go nowhere. The fifth barrier is, I think, the most important intellectually, the absence of significant proven benefits. Here's the uncomfortable truth the slide states plainly. So far, the relationship between CSR implementation and corporate performance has not been proven. That creates a real dilemma. There are findings that CSR does not benefit the company in the short term. The quantitative measures are lacking, and reports lean on qualitative aspects rather than hard numbers, all of which discourages firms from committing. Hold on to this point because the rest of this course is in many ways a long attempt to answer exactly this question. Does sustainability pay, and can we measure it? The sixth barrier, the sheer complexity of CSR implementation. It has to be treated as a comprehensive approach, and the potential benefits depend on the sector, the type of activity, the size of the business, the state of the national economy, and the specific environmental or social problems in play. In short, there's no universal recipe. Two more barriers, and both are about the human, time-bound side of change. The seventh, CSR implementation is time-consuming. Real change takes a long time. The plan changes have to be accepted at every level of the organization, and across every area, and everyone needs to be informed. On top of that, the actions differ in nature and often require extra explanation so that stakeholders actually understand their meaning and their long-term benefits. CSR isn't a switch you flip. It's a slow cultural shift. The eighth barrier, a lack of training and of employee participation. And notice how this connects to the customer. A customer's perception of CSR can be complex and many-sided. It may be exactly what leads them to choose one product over a competitor's, or it may make no difference at all. That uncertainty is the problem. Customers have to be convinced of the importance of CSR, and often consumers simply know very little about what a given company is actually doing. So the benefit only materializes if people, employees and customers alike, are brought along and informed. The final barrier on this list, a lack of the necessary skills and education. Implementing CSR principles is a genuinely complex and difficult task that demands specific expertise. To meet the requirements and get the implementation right, a firm needs to draw on the knowledge of experts. And that has a clear implication. The company should invest in training because a lack of knowledge can lead straight to failure. You try to implement CSR, you do it badly, and it collapses. So step back and look at the full list we've now assembled. Money, management commitment, knowledge, strategic planning, unproven benefits, complexity, time, participation, and skills. That is a formidable set of obstacles, and any honest advocate of CSR has to take them seriously. Now, having been thoroughly tough-minded, let's finally turn the coin over and look at the benefits. This slide sets out the first side of the benefits of CSR, shown on screen. Let me give you the intuition behind them. Against all those costs we just catalogued sit some very real gains. A credible CSR record can strengthen a company's reputation and brand, the intangible asset that customers, employees, and investors increasingly reward. It can improve risk management because a firm that takes environmental and social issues seriously is less likely to be blindsided by a scandal, a boycott, or a regulatory shock. And it can help attract and retain talented employees who more and more want to work for an organization whose values they share. So the benefits aren't only about feeling good. Several of them feed directly back into the firm's competitive strength. The benefits continue on this slide. Beyond reputation and risk, CSR can open the door to genuine business advantages, deeper customer loyalty, access to new markets, and to sustainability-minded investors, and often real cost savings through eco-efficiency, since using less energy and generating less waste is frequently cheaper as well as greener. And then there are the benefits to society, which we shouldn't forget in a course on sustainable finance. Cleaner environment, better working conditions, stronger communities. The honest verdict, and this connects straight back to that fifth barrier, is that many of these benefits are real but hard to quantify, and they tend to show up over the long term rather than the next quarter. That mismatch between long-term diffuse benefits and short-term measurable costs is exactly why the business case for CSR remains contested. Resolving it is what the measurement tools we'll meet next are for, which brings us naturally to this closing slide. CSR Key Performance Indicators, KPIs, and this is the perfect bridge to what comes next in the course. If the central problem with CSR is that its benefits are hard to measure and its reports lean on soft, qualitative language, then the response is obvious. Develop hard indicators. KPIs are how a company turns a vague commitment, we care about the environment, we treat our people well, into something countable, trackable, and comparable over time. Tons of emissions, percentage of renewable energy, workplace accident rates, gender balance in management, share of ethically sourced materials. The moment you put numbers on CSR, you can set targets, measure progress, and hold the company accountable. And that is precisely the doorway into the next part of this course. Let's recap the business case. We deliberately started with the costs, and they are substantial. The cost-benefit ratio is the central barrier, made up of a lack of financial resources, weak management commitment, insufficient knowledge, poor strategic planning, unproven benefits, sheer complexity, the time required, a lack of training and participation, and a shortage of the necessary skills. Against those we set the benefits: reputation, risk management, talent, loyalty, new markets, efficiency, and real gains for society, while being honest that many of them are long-term and hard to quantify. And that difficulty pointed us straight at KPIs, the attempt to make CSR countable. In the next video, we bring CSR to life. We'll see how researchers actually study and quantify it, and we'll look at what real companies like AXA, Deutsche Bank, BASF, and Adidas say they're doing. See you there. Thanks for watching to the end. If you'd like more like this, do subscribe, and see you very soon.